Dr. Nelson, how did you find carnivore?
All right. So I've been very familiar with ketogenic diets since the early 90s, probably. Uh, I was already a doctor, and I actually used personally the Atkins diet several times to lose, you know, 20, 30, 40 pounds multiple times, like many of us have done. Uh, but I always used it just to lose some weight. And then when I was at the goal or when I got to a stall, then go back to eating the regular way. But, and at some point in my life, I think my maximum weight was 325 pounds, 320. So the more recent uh, time, at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, I was over, I was 305, 310 pounds. And a long list of chronic problems, which we'll probably touch on them. But I decided, okay, I got to do something. I was tired of being sick and tired. Um, and I started at the beginning of the year uh, following a very strict ketogenic diet. Basically, I already knew what to do. Basically, eliminated everything except some non starchy vegetables. Uh, and lost about 45 pounds. And on June 12th, 2023, I went to have my eye exam. I had been diabetic up to that point for about 28 years, and they found that I had some macular edema. Now, I had had regular checkups before. I didn't have that before, but at that point, I had been already a year and a half using a GLP-1 medication for the diabetes. Interestingly enough, my A1C before starting that medication was 6.7 under normal medical standards. That's considered to be under control, right? Uh, so before I started the GLP-1 for diabetes, 6.7. The month, about 3 weeks before that eye exam that I had, it was 6.7. So year and a half plus on it. I had not done anything for my uh, A1C, and it had never done anything for my weight. The moment I started losing was when I went into a very strict low carb diet. So it had not helped me for the weight, had not helped me for the sugar control, but gave me macular edema. Okay. And it had given me as well gastroparesis. So June 12th, my daughter-in-law was pregnant with who is my first grandchild now. Yesterday he was 20 months. So June 12th, she's pregnant. They tell me I have macular edema, and my first thought is, oh, this could deteriorate quickly or not, and I got to see my grandson. So I started looking for ways to improve my glucose control. Now, it was a couple of medications. I was also using insulin, which at the worst time, it had top 300 units a day, so I could continue eating the way I was eating. And routinely, over 40 years of being a doctor, I had learned. I'm a family physician. That's my specialty, and I had learned how to manage diabetes on patients. with all the medications, I usually would get them under control. My primary diet advice was definitely eliminating the refined sugars, the refined carbohydrates, particularly all the starchy foods, the bread, the pasta. Uh, and was pretty good at getting them under control, but I was already doing that with myself, and my A1C is still 6.7. So I'm looking for ways to tweak that. And even though at the moment I was aware that some people ate only meat, famously Joe Rogan, uh, Jordan Peterson, I was aware of that, but I thought they were crazy. Okay. And so from that moment of next 2 weeks, I am doing all the searching I can online about ketogenic diets, and I start finding videos from people about the carnivore diet. And it wasn't exactly a doctor's YouTube channel. We your audience probably knows all the big doctors online that promote carnivore diet, but it wasn't any of those. It was listening to a video, Carrie Mann, uh, at Homestead How, where he was interviewing someone, and the person had lost weight and had improved his depression. That impacted me. So I said, okay, by after that, I found Dr. Berry, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Robert Sives, Dr. Westman, Dr. Abadia, Dr. Hampton. I probably missing some of the people I watch videos I have put a lot of hours into, but I decided to go on a carnivore diet. I was already a meat eater, although in the past I had been vegetarian, by the way, at some points more than once in my life. But I jumped into it. I've never had any problems with the keto flu, so I just jumped into it. And one of the, I still think is one of the most amazing uh, things that happened was on the third or fourth day after going carnivore. I wake up one day and I know for a fact that day in the morning, I knew for a fact I wasn't going to eat that day because I was absolutely not hungry. I was feeling full of energy and mental clarity, feeling very good. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm not going to eat today. And the whole day went by, no problem. The next day comes, I'm still not hungry. I ended up eating that day mostly out of, okay, I haven't done this before in the past. I had never fasted 24 hours that I remember. And I ended up eating that day a little bit out of fear of, okay, what is going on? Not because I was extremely hungry. So I did basically a 48 hours fast because with the gastroparesis I was not able to eat more than once a day already. So the problem, yeah, it's a serious problem, but the benefit at least was that it forced me to eat once a day. Uh, so
And so this is all around June 23?
this was actually the day my carniversary is coming up, June 29th. Uh, was when that happened. Today is 600. Today, as we're recording, 692 days. Uh, uh, so the 2 years is coming up, and fast forwarding to today, I have uh, I lost over 100 pounds in between the time I was strict low carb and going carnivore. Uh, I completely got off. I definitely got off from the GLP-1, as you know, probably the week before I went carnivore was my last time I had an injection, and I still lost 55, 60 pounds after that on carnivore. I tapered down on blood pressure medications. I was using metoprolol 300 milligrams a day, which is a very high dose. I was using lisinopril maximum dose, and I tapered those off slowly over the next. Since I went carnivore, took me about 7, 8 months to completely get off blood pressure medication, and I kept having to taper off because my blood pressure was going down. So February 14th, 2024 was the last day I took blood pressure medication. I remember because my birthday is the 15th, and that morning I passed out from my blood pressure being so low. So I did not take any more blood pressure medication after that. Uh, so those are major things. I mean, if we look at the top causes of mortality, of course, cardiovascular events, uh, cancer, uh, iatrogenic causes like being hospitalized and medications is also up there, unfortunately. But along the way, I've reversed, eliminated, put in remission, whatever, however you want to phrase it, multiple things. Uh, Minor things like a little mild eczema. It wasn't a big. It was never a big problem, but I had it, and since I went carnivore, that went away. Uh, One of my toenails had for a few years some fungus, and I was keeping it in check. It disappeared. Chronic pain. I don't remember exactly the day it went away because with pain, you know when it's there, you don't realize it sometimes when it's not there, and so that improved. Plantar fasciitis that I had suffered with on and off for 35 years or longer. I can't remember when it went away, but it got better. Gastroesophageal reflux. Uh, there are other things that they're still present, have improved, but they're still present. I have four different reasons to having numbness and tingling in my extremities. One of them goes back to before having back surgery. Uh, Vitamin B12 deficiency, which was from two different medications I was using. By the way, I eliminated about seven prescription medications, some of them for chronic pain, like non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents. Uh, Sometimes with severe pain, I wasn't able to take stronger medication because you don't want your doctor, when you go to your doctor, to be on narcotics, right? So I had to learn to live with the pain and the relief from ibuprofen or similar medications. So the list is long, but the major ones, my A1C for the past year and a half has been 5.4. Okay. And that is certainly an accomplishment because at its worst, I think I may have had a 9 or 11. Like I mentioned, 300 units of insulin a day so I could continue eating the way I was eating. A couple of other medications. I've used several of the diabetic medications available today. Um, and the blood pressure, those are major ones. I had a stroke in 2018. I am right handed. It was my right hand, my right side that was weak. Uh, there is probably still some residue from that that a good clinical eye would detect just in my face because uh, sometimes you can see a little bit of a droop on one side, and my this eye looks a little bit bigger sometimes than the left. Anyways, so diabetic neuropathy, stroke, numbness and tingling on the right side, the back problems with pinched nerves and vitamin B12 deficiency, all those things can cause or worsen neuropathy. So I still have some numbness and tingling, but it's certainly much improved with basically a carnivore diet.
Has anything changed with the gastroparesis?
Yes, it that also has improved. And gastroparesis is a type of neuropathy. The damage is in the nerves that control the stomach and the intestinal movement. It's primarily a type of neuropathy, and brain and nerves take a little bit longer to improve. Even on a carnivore diet, which is very anti-inflammatory, it's a slower uh, process to get improvement. So I still have some numbness and tingling, but it's much different. 2022, that summer, I was uh, falling. I wasn't able to walk more than maybe 50, 100 feet without starting to have more either numbness or tingling or pain in my legs, or had to stop to rest. For 35 years prior to that, whenever I went to a big box store, well, the past few years was worse. I had to get on one of those uh, electric carts at the big box store. Through the pandemic, that was definitely uh, a time when I would go to the supermarket. It was always packed, and of course, everybody's trying to avoid everyone else. And usually, my local store didn't have enough of those cards, so sometimes I would have to turn around and go back home because if I couldn't find one of those, I couldn't really walk the store. I was using a cane. At work, I was I could hide it very well because I didn't have to take my cane, and there was always walls to hold on to if I needed to, or a counter where I would, stand to write in between patients. But whenever I was outside walking, either a cane, and I live near Orlando, so for the past 29 years, we have frequently gone to the theme parks. And if you go to a theme park, I always had to rent one of those electric carts to be able to walk around and enjoy the park. Well, last year, twice, I think three times, I was able to walk to a couple of different theme parks, and I was able to walk all day. We probably spent a good 12 hours each time in the park. I was able to walk all day, stand. You would sit to watch one of the shows and or to eat, and I was able to spend the whole day without renting one of those. By that time, by the way, I do have my own scooter that uh, it's been collecting dust now. Uh,
You haven't had to use it at all.
no. So last year, three times I did something I had not been able to do for 35 years before, which was walk around the whole park, come home, and wake up the next day without pain. That's definitely a non scale victory. And just being able to do that, it's almost incredible.
Yeah, and like those kind of things, they just seem so simple and everyday. But when you get yourself in a position where you can't do them and then suddenly you can, it's life changing, right?
Certainly, certainly. And being able to walk long distances, 2 miles, 4 miles, I've walked in a day, which it was almost impossible. Like I said, in 2022, I even had to go to physical therapy because I was just getting worse. I was topping around 310 pounds, constant pain on my back. I couldn't stand straight without holding onto something usually, whether it was the cane or counter, like I mentioned, and I had to have physical therapy. I always mention that I was lucky enough to have uh, one of the best physical therapy assistants. Of course, I'm a little bit biased because he was one of my sons.
So through all of this, um, you said you were type 2 diabetic for, sorry, 28 years? Is that right?
Yes, yes,
Right. So through all of this, you know, you've been keto, you've been Atkins over the years, and this is kind of what I did as well. Was there a moment when things started to improve on carnivore where you kind of were feeling to yourself like, I was this close all that time. I was this close. I just needed to give up the last of the veggies.
yeah. No, definitely a complete realization because I'm a physician. I am giving advice to patients about diet. I already knew, like I said, about low carb, but I never used it on a regular basis, sort of a permanent basis on myself. So that's shame on me, right? Uh, I grew up in Puerto Rico. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, so our typical diet includes rice and beans almost every day, twice a day. Includes a lot of roots, and even though in Puerto Rico you do eat meat, a lot of people eat pork, uh, beef, chicken, fish, all around the island. We're a small island, so there's a lot of fish available. Uh, but the main parts of the Puerto Rican cuisine is highly carbohydrates. It's all based on rice, beans, and tubers. So that was my way of eating, and I was very well aware when treating patients that those starches were the first things that you need to eliminate. Very difficult to advise a Puerto Rican to eliminate rice and beans, to advise uh, Mexican, Central American people to eliminate tortillas. All right. Um, you live in Japan, rice is a mainstay of the diet there as well. So it is difficult whether you're giving advice or even if you grow up eating a certain way to change the way you're eating to improve your health. But yes, I mean, all along the way, I keep finding things that are better.
Right.
Uh,
So uh, when you discovered carnivore, were you still seeing patients? Did you have a clinic still? And did
yeah,
you try and introduce this to some of the patients?
almost every patient. And at the time that I went carnivore, I was seeing a lot of chronic pain patients. And I would tell them, try this. And uh, chronically ill people very often will have in common, uh, in particular when you have chronic pain, you are not as active as other people due to the pain, right? And inactivity breeds weight gain. And if you're gaining weight and you're eating excessive amounts of carbohydrates, which seems the whole world does, because up to 93% of all of us are metabolically sick. And so diabetes is common, hypertension is common, uh, the weight problems are common. And but it it is still a challenge to tell a patient your pain is going to improve and have them believe you. I don't think it's that difficult to tell a patient lower your carbs. I I think awareness is growing. Uh, they do know lower carbs will help with the weight, and that that might be even the most common reason for people to try going low carb or into a carnivore diet. But then you start realizing all the changes that and the benefits that you have from eliminating uh, all this extra food that you probably don't need, because this is the most nutritionally dense food there is.
And you've just got to get someone to commit to 30 days, I think. If they can do 30 days, once they've got to that 30-day mark, like it's be a very strange situation to see someone say, "No, I don't like this feeling good stuff. I'm going back to the carbs."
And even I think I may have decided to give it a 30-day try, right? If I did just a few days into it, I had already made the decision. I'm not going back. And I have had some very low carb items here and there. I may have had a pickle or some avocado or olives, but I'm mostly all the time carnivore.
Yeah. So what is your menu like day to day?
Well, all kinds of cuts of beef is the main thing I look for. Hamburgers, ground beef as well. I have a little bit of chicken sometimes. Used to be that fried chicken was my favorite food. Okay, I speak Spanish and English barely, but I do speak some English, right? I didn't speak English until I was 19, by the way. Uh, but I do know one phrase in Portuguese, uh, which is that I like fried chicken, uh, because I used to like that a lot. And one of the famous franchise chains was my favorite. But then I soon realized what I liked was the fried breading on the chicken. As far as taste is concerned, that food is terrible, but uh, that's really what I like. So don't like. I still like chicken, but not as much as I did before when I was. And this particular change actually has always fried it in beef tallow, by the way, but it was breaded uh, chicken. So I do eat chicken sometimes. I like to eat fish occasionally. I buy wild caught salmon, sometimes wild caught tuna. I put it in the refrigerator, in the freezer, for a month. Now there are some guidelines suggest that in the United States about uh, decreasing your risk of getting sick from from eating raw fish, because when I do eat salmon or tuna, it is raw. So I like the sashimi. If I ever go to uh, a restaurant, my wife and I went to a restaurant the other day, and a sushi restaurant. So what I eat is basically the sashimi, and so when I freeze it for about a month, then defrost it, it decreases your chances of the problems associated with eating raw fish. So maybe once a month, uh, I have that. I may have chicken. I also cook at home. When I'm home, I'm usually the cook, and the rest of the family does like uh, the chicken. So if I'm gonna try to fry it in beef tallow, or we use the air fryer. So those are the most frequent things. I eat lamb. I eat goat. Uh, Goat and lamb are more inexpensive than eating beef all the time. But as
Mm.
far as beef is concerned, any cut of beef doesn't matter what it is. I'll try it. I think I've tried every piece of you can think of.
Right, and, are the rest of the family joining you doing this, or are you kind of carnivore on your own?
Uh, as far as being carnivore, it's mostly on my own. However, my wife is a more a low carb eater most of the time, and she has completely gotten insulin off insulin as well. I think she was using 100 units a day at some point. She's lost 60, 70 pounds, but she still likes to have some of her veggies, and occasionally, like on Mother's Day, she said, "Okay, well, I'm gonna have a treat," which means something that was sugary, and she saw the curve, but it was Mother's Day, and she wanted to have it. So not a not as much as I am, but she's low carb. One of my sons has been on the lower carb, maybe not to the extreme of being ketogenic, but uh, since the early 90s as well, because uh, one of the times that I did a strict Atkins diet, he did it with me, and he wanted to lose, I think it was maybe 20 pounds at the time. He was a teenager, and he did it. So he maintains his weight very good. So I say he's on the low carb. Other members of the family, unfortunately, uh, I have three adult kids, and unfortunately, I fed them breakfast boxed cereal with skim milk for many years. And
Yeah, well, we didn't know though, right? We thought we were doing the right thing, and that's the problem with the general population. Everyone thinks they're doing the right thing, right?
mhm. So I have officially apologized to them for feeding them. But
Yeah.
there is nothing basically. I tell everybody there is nothing that comes in a box, a bag, or a can that really you should be eating. There may be a few exceptions if you're eating non-starchy vegetables, for example, and they're frozen. So that's a minimally processed item because they cut the broccoli, they freeze it, and they package it. And that is minimally processed, but minimally being the key word. So if you're going to have uh, non-starchy vegetables, those will probably come in a frozen bag or uh, a can of green beans and things like that. Those things are basically minimally processed. But if you can avoid eating anything that comes in a box, a bag, or a can, that's probably the best thing. And nowadays, if I go to the supermarket, I call it my hunting trip. I go hunting to the supermarket, and the first almost only stop is at the meat aisle. Just take a look what's there available, uh, and I pretty much ignore most of the other aisles, even on the big box. Uh, Not even tempted to even look unless I'm looking for something specific. I I don't have it here, but uh, I stopped eating a lot of bread, and probably years ago. I It's been years since I really had milk until this weekend that I tried some raw milk, by the way, because there's too much sugar on the milk. And if you are diabetic, you probably shouldn't be eating or drinking sugar at the very least. Um, so we were having a cookout on the grill for New Year's Day, and I bought the day before or on that day, so January 1st, I bought, and I thought I had it around here, but they moved it. I bought a bag of hamburger buns because I was cooking hamburgers, chicken, and steak on the grill. And most people ate everything without the bun. I think there were missing two of them from the bag, and it was a big bag at one of those big stores that they only sell large quantities. I think it was Sam's Club. And so I still have the bag. It's going to be now 5 months. No, almost 6 months. 5 months. It's going to be on the 1st of June. And there's no mold on the bread.
Pristine condition.
And once I noticed that that wasn't molding, I've been keeping it on purpose. I haven't even opened it again, but there is no mold on a bag of bread for 5 months. You got to think about that because
Y-
that's the preservatives they put. Normally, a bread will mold, or within days, at the most a week or two. If it's a or four ingredient bread, it's gonna mold within at the most 2 weeks. It's gonna mold. Well, 5 months.
and just, the amount of chemicals and preservatives and stuff they have to use to get it to that. Imagine what that does to your insides. It's just
Hmm.
terrible. Mm. Um, so if if someone came to you and said, "Okay, Dr. Nelson, tell me how to start carnivore," what advice would you give them?
Uh, I think it depends a little bit on what they're doing at the moment. Someone who's coming from the standard atrocious diet, uh, basically high carb, full of ultra processed foods and candy, uh, I would probably suggest, you know once going beyond the the fact that they might have some resistance to any low carb, but if they were willing to go low carb, I would say let's do this slowly. excuse me, and gradually, because there are known side effects, that are, I wouldn't even call them side effects. You may, because of the change of the diet, you might develop some difference in your bowel habits. You might develop cramps, and things like that, and they are all temporary. They will, it will pass. But I would probably suggest to someone who's coming from that high carb diet to do it slowly and just transition into it. This shouldn't be viewed, definitely, as a temporary fix. Most people realize that when you're doing this, you're feeling better, you're improving so many different conditions, that it's probably more of a permanent switch. Now, some people struggle with uh, carb addiction or sugar addiction, right? And may fall off the wagon frequently. But even people, I have seen plenty of people who they might go off that way of eating and they always come back, because that's how they feel the best doing that. And diet doesn't fix everything, but it's a very, very important component. It's, you also have to sleep well, try to manage your stress, and you have to move. But some people can move. They're so metabolically ill that it's difficult to do any type of activity. They can still work on the diet. By the way, most of that weight I lost over 100 pounds in 14 months. Um, and most of that was without any exercise because I was barely able to walk. So uh, you cannot out exercise a bad diet. Diet is probably the most important component of both. I'm not saying the exercise is not important. So as soon as I was able to do more activities, then I was able to do it. I was feeling with the motivation better to do it. It just changes your mind in so many positive ways as well. So yes, activity is important. Yes, sleeping well is important. Vitamin D, being in the sunlight, grounding, all these things are very good components. But the diet is the first and probably the most important
It's kind
component.
of like the
So
foundation, and everything else is
yeah, yeah. So
important,
if
but
some,
it's on top.
yeah. So someone that comes from a low carb way of eating and they're already doing that, and many people, well, I was one of them. I came from eating low carb, except for those days that I used to stop at a gas station and get my apple fritters. Uh, I did have a bad diet very frequently before, and I say it because I know there are many people that are in the similar situation. But if someone is already doing low carb, then they can probably just jump into. I mean, if you're already eating, let's say if you're 20, 30 grams of carbs a day, you can do it gradually and go, if you're counting very specifically, okay, 10 or 15, go down to 5, you can probably just jump right into carnivore, which is essentially a zero carb. It's not absolutely zero, but there is a little bit of carbohydrates in meat. There are carbohydrates in eggs and cheese, and all these things are carnivore. But uh, I think you can probably just jump right into it, and you shouldn't have much problems.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's good advice. Um, So, Dr. Nelson, if people want to reach out to you, do you have any way of getting in contact? How's best for them to reach you?
So you can find me at the real Dr. Nelson on YouTube. I've been working for three, almost 4 months now for Dr. Kiltz. So I'm part of the Kiltz Health team. And so my email there is nelson at drkiltz.com. I am frequently on the morning lives. You know, he has lives every morning, Monday through Friday, uh, at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. We also have an afternoon live stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays, also on his channels and my channel. I'm the one usually that's there at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, but frequently he's with us. And uh, the Kilt's Mighty Tribe, we have a Zoom call every Monday. I'm also there unless traveling. I'm almost always there as well. So if you find Dr. Kills, usually you'll find me.
So I'll link to all those in the show notes. Um, Dr. Nelson, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience. So
Thank you very much for having me.